Jack Stone stared through the viewport of his small shuttle as Unity Point came into view. The massive space station looked like a shining metal flower blooming in the darkness of space, its huge petals stretching out for miles. Each petal housed representatives from different alien species across the galaxy. And now, for the first time, it would house a human. His hands were steady on the controls as he guided the shuttle toward the docking bay, but his heart beat faster with each passing moment. After 50 years of watching the stars and wondering about alien life, humanity had finally made contact. Now, as Earth's first representative to the Galactic Council, Jack carried the hopes and dreams of his entire species. The docking computer beeped softly, taking control of the final approach. Jack used these last few minutes to check his appearance in the reflection of the dark screen. His formal black suit was wrinkle-free, his gray tie straight, and his short brown hair neat. At 45 years old, he looked exactly like what he was, a seasoned diplomat ready to represent his people. The shuttle came to a gentle stop inside a massive hangar. Through the window, Jack could see the welcoming committee. His diplomatic training couldn't have prepared him for the sight. 6 different alien species stood waiting, each more remarkable than the last. Taking a deep breath, Jack stepped out of his shuttle. The artificial gravity felt slightly stronger than Earth's, making his movements a bit slower. He noticed how the aliens watched him, some with multiple eyes, others with sensory organs he couldn't even name. "Welcome to Unity Point, Human Representative Stone," said a tall, crystalline being whose voice seemed to come from vibrations within its transparent body. "I am First Speaker Bright Crystal. We trust your journey was acceptable." "Thank you, First Speaker. The journey was excellent," Jack replied with a diplomatic smile, trying not to show his awe at speaking to a living crystal. A massive creature covered in natural armor plates stepped forward, its heavy footsteps echoing through the hangar. "This is the human representative," it rumbled, voice filled with disbelief. "So small, so soft. No armor, no claws, not even basic environmental protection built into your skin." Jack maintained his smile, though it took effort. "We make up for our physical limitations in other ways," he said calmly. A ripple of what might have been laughter moved through the group. The armored being, Jack's briefing identified its species as the Guardians, shook its massive head. "Make up for it. Your species hasn't even survived its first extinction event yet. You haven't evolved past your basic form. How do you expect to contribute to the Council?" Before Jack could respond, another alien floated forward. This one looked like a collection of glowing gas held together by an electromagnetic field. Now, Defense Minister, let's not be hasty. Even the smallest species can have their uses. Perhaps humans will make good messengers or data processors." Jack felt his jaw tighten, but years of diplomatic training kept his voice steady. "We look forward to showing the Council exactly what humanity can contribute," he said. "Our history is full of examples where we've overcome physical limitations through innovation and determination." Yes, very admirable," the first speaker cut in, its crystalline form flickering with what might have been impatience. "Your quarters have been prepared in the outer ring, Section 17. The Council meets tomorrow at first rotation. Try not to strain yourself with our standard gravity settings. We can adjust them if needed." Jack straightened his back, standing as tall as he could. "The standard settings will be fine. Thank you." As he followed a small mechanical guide to his quarters, Jack could hear the aliens discussing him in their various languages. Their universal translators weren't quite quick enough to stop him from catching phrases like primitive species and physical weakness. Let them think what they want, Jack thought to himself. They weren't the first to underestimate humans, and they wouldn't be the last. Tomorrow would be his first real chance to show them that humanity's strength had never come from claws, armor, or natural weapons. He just hoped they were ready to learn that lesson. Jack's first real council meeting came sooner than expected. At exactly third rotation, emergency alarms blared throughout Unity Point. Red lights flashed in the corridors as he hurried toward the main council chamber. joining the stream of various alien species all heading in the same direction. The chamber was massive, shaped like an amphitheater with rising tiers of seats. Each species had their own section modified for their unique biology. Jack found the human seat in the outer ring, the furthest from the central speaking platform. A clear message about humanity's status. First speaker Bright Crystal materialized in the center platform, its crystalline form glowing with urgency. Representatives of the Galactic Council, we face a grave crisis. A spatial anomaly has appeared in the Centauri sector, threatening 3 major trade routes and 7 inhabited systems. The chamber erupted in voices and other forms of communication. Jack leaned forward, studying the holographic display that appeared above the central platform. The anomaly looked like a tear in space itself, pulsing with strange energy patterns. "The Guardians will handle this," the armored defense minister announced, standing to his full, impressive height. "Our warships conceal any spatial breach." The gaseous being from yesterday, Jack now knew it was the science minister, swirled in agitation. "This is not a simple breach, Defense Minister. Our readings show it's growing exponentially. It's already swallowed 2 unmanned research stations." Jack studied the data scrolling alongside the hologram. Something about the energy pattern seemed familiar, but he needed more information. He tapped his console to request speaking permission, but the council ignored his signal. "My species will lead the response," announced a towering being made of pure energy. "Our natural form allows us to interact directly with spatial phenomena." "The mining collective disagrees," rumbled a stocky, silicon-based creature. "Our void-boring equipment can drill into the anomaly and collapse it." Jack's eyes widened as he spotted a pattern in the data. The anomaly's energy signature was fluctuating in a regular sequence. He tried again to get the council's attention, but the light on his console remained ignored. The next hour was filled with increasingly heated debates. The Guardians wanted to attack the anomaly with their most powerful weapons. The energy beings proposed creating a containment field. The mining collective insisted their drilling platforms could fix everything. Finally, during a brief pause, Jack stood up. "Honored council members, if I might offer an observation." The defense minister turned all 4 of his eyes toward Jack. "The human thinks it can solve a problem that the greatest species in the galaxy cannot. This should be amusing." Jack activated his console, sending his analysis to the main display. "The anomaly's energy pattern isn't random. Look at these oscillations. They repeat every 47 minutes. It's like a pulse, or maybe a form of communication." "Communication?" The science minister scoffed. "It's a spatial tear, not a living thing." "I'm not saying it's alive," Jack explained carefully. "But on Earth, we've seen similar patterns in certain natural phenomena. Our oceans have tidal patterns. Our planet has electromagnetic pulses. Sometimes, understanding the pattern is more important than raw power." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then laughter erupted from multiple sections. "The human wants us to treat a spatial anomaly like an ocean wave," the defense minister boomed. "Next, perhaps you'll suggest we should talk to it." "Actually," Jack said firmly, "I suggest we study it before we attack it. Every solution proposed so far involves brute force." "What if that makes things worse?" "Enough of this nonsense," the defense minister cut him off. "The Guardians will deploy immediately. We don't need advice from a species that barely understands space travel." As the council broke into planning sessions, Jack sat back in his seat, still watching the hologram. The pattern was there, clear as day to him. But they weren't ready to listen. Not yet. He had a feeling they'd learn the hard way that sometimes the biggest threats couldn't be solved with claws, energy beams, or drilling equipment. Some problems needed something else. Something humans had learned through millions of years of being the physically weaker species. They needed patience, observation, and understanding. 3 days had passed since the Guardian fleet engaged the spatial anomaly. Jack sat in his quarters, surrounded by holographic displays showing the disaster unfolding in real time. The massive Guardian warships, each the size of a small moon, fired their most powerful weapons at the tear in space. Instead of closing, the anomaly grew larger. "Computer, replay the energy pattern readings from the last 6 hours," Jack said, rubbing his tired eyes. He hadn't slept much since the crisis began. While the council argued and blamed each other for the failing military operation, he had been working nonstop, gathering data and looking for patterns. The holographic display shifted, showing waves of energy readings. Jack leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. There it was again, the same 47-minute pulse he'd noticed before, but now it was faster. The anomaly wasn't just growing, it was responding to the attacks. His computer console chimed with an urgent message. The mining collective had launched their void-boring platforms despite the Guardian fleet's protests. Jack watched in horror as the massive drilling machines approached the anomaly. "No, no, no," he muttered, quickly sending a message to the council chamber. "The pattern is speeding up. Any more attacks will make it worse." His warning was ignored. The drilling platforms activated their boring beams, attempting to pierce the anomaly's edge. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the anomaly pulsed with blinding light. When the light faded, the drilling platforms were gone, and the tear in space had doubled in size. Emergency alarms blared throughout Unity Point. Jack grabbed his tablet and ran for the council chamber. The corridors were chaos, filled with representatives from all species hurrying in different directions. The artificial gravity fluctuated as the station's systems struggled to cope with energy waves from the growing anomaly. Inside the council chamber, panic had taken hold. The defense minister was roaring orders to his fleet, while the mining collective representatives argued loudly about their lost platforms. The energy beings flickered with agitation as they proposed increasingly desperate solutions. "The containment field is failing," the science minister announced, their gaseous form swirling in distress. "At this rate, the anomaly will reach the primary trade routes in less than 12 hours. Jack fought his way to his console and began uploading his data. Years of diplomatic training helped him keep his voice steady as he called out, "First speaker, I request emergency speaking privileges." This time, to his surprise, first speaker Bright Crystal turned toward him. "Granted, human representative. Though I fail to see what you could offer at this point." Jack activated the main display, showing his analysis. The anomaly isn't just a tear in space. It's a complex system responding to outside stimulus. Look at these readings. Every time we attack it, the pulse pattern speeds up and the anomaly grows. It's like a defense mechanism. "That's impossible," the defense minister growled, but there was uncertainty in his voice. "Not impossible," Jack continued. "Think about it. Every species here evolved natural defenses against attacks. Why couldn't a spatial phenomenon do the same? The more we fight it, the stronger it gets." The science minister floated closer to study the data. "The pattern. You're right. It's changing in response to our actions. But if we can't attack it, how do we stop it?" Jack took a deep breath. This was his moment. Humanity's moment. To prove their worth. "I have a theory. We've been treating this like a battle. But what if it's more like a dance? The anomaly has a rhythm, a pattern. Instead of fighting it, we need to understand it. Work with it." The chamber fell silent as his words sank in. Then the defense minister laughed, but it was weaker than before. "A dance. This is your solution." "My solution," Jack said firmly, "is to stop thinking like warriors for a moment and start thinking like scientists, like explorers, like humans." First speaker Bright Crystal's crystalline form shimmered thoughtfully. "Explain your theory, human representative. Quickly. We are running out of options and time." All eyes in the council chamber focused on Jack as he stood at the central platform. The holographic displays around him showed the ever-growing anomaly, its pulsing rhythm now clearly visible to everyone. Jack's heart was racing, but his voice remained steady as he began his explanation. "On Earth, we have something called resonance," he said, pulling up a simple diagram. When two things vibrate at the same frequency, they can either strengthen each other or cancel each other out. It's how we make music, how we build bridges, and sometimes, he paused, looking around the chamber, how we solve problems that seem impossible. The science minister drifted closer, their gaseous form showing patterns of interest. You believe this applies to the spatial anomaly? Look at the data, Jack said, expanding the display. Every time we attack the anomaly, its pulse speeds up, but the pattern remains the same, just faster and stronger, like it's trying to overpower our energy with its own. He pulled up recordings from the Guardian Fleet's attack and the mining collective's attempt. See, each time we used force, the anomaly matched and exceeded our energy output. But what if, instead of fighting its rhythm, we matched it? The defense minister stomped forward. Matched it. You want us to copy this thing that's eating our space? Not copy, Jack corrected. Harmonize. Look here. He showed a new simulation. If we generate an energy field that matches the anomaly's base frequency, that 47-minute pulse we first noticed, we might be able to stabilize it. Maybe even begin a controlled collapse. First speaker Bright Crystal vibrated with skepticism. This theory is based on music. Not just music, Jack said. It's based on understanding patterns and working with them instead of against them. Humans learned this lesson over millions of years. We couldn't overpower our predators, so we learned to outsmart them. We couldn't survive extreme weather, so we learned to adapt to it. Every time nature threw a challenge at us, we succeeded not by being the strongest, but by being the smartest. The chamber erupted in murmurs and other forms of communication. Jack could see the conflict in their reactions, the desperate need for a solution wrestling with their reluctance to trust a weaker species. The science minister's form rippled thoughtfully. The math behind your theory is sound, but the energy requirements would be enormous. No single species has generators powerful enough. Then we work together, Jack said firmly. The Guardian Fleet's power plants, combined with the energy being's natural abilities and the mining collective's power cores, together, they could generate exactly the frequency we need. Cooperate with other species. The defense minister's armor plates rattled with disapproval. Each of our technologies is a closely guarded secret. Then we'll all watch our worlds die with our secrets intact. Jack snapped, his patience finally breaking. Look at the projections. We have hours before the anomaly reaches the first inhabited system. Is your pride worth more than those lives? The chamber fell silent. On the main display, the anomaly pulsed ominously, now large enough to swallow a small planet. First speaker Bright Crystal floated to the center of the chamber. The human's theory is untested. It goes against all our traditional methods. It requires unprecedented cooperation between species who have been rivals for centuries. The crystal being paused, its facets reflecting the emergency lights, and it appears to be our only remaining option. The science minister swirled in agreement. I will share our resonance technology. The Guardian Fleet stands ready. The defense minister growled reluctantly. One by one, the representatives offered their resources, their technology, their help. Jack felt a weight lift from his shoulders as the council finally united behind his plan. We'll need to work fast, he said, already bringing up coordination schedules. And we'll need to be precise. One mistake in the frequency matching could make things worse. Then we better not make any mistakes, the first speaker said. Lead the way, human representative Stone. Show us this human way of solving problems. The command center hummed with activity as Jack coordinated the most ambitious joint operation in Galactic Council history. 3 Guardian warships formed a triangle around the anomaly, their massive power cores modified to generate specific energy frequencies. Between them, energy being volunteers floated in space, their natural forms glowing as they prepared to channel and direct the power. Mining platforms in position, reported the mining collective's representative through the comm system. Their drilling platforms, now reconfigured as energy amplifiers, anchored the formation's outer edges. Jack checked the readings on his display one final time. Every piece had to work perfectly together, like an orchestra playing in perfect harmony. The fate of 7 solar systems depended on it. "All ships maintain your positions," he ordered, surprising himself with how natural it felt to command such powerful beings. "Energy beings, prepare to receive power from the Guardian ships. Mining platforms, stand by to amplify and reflect." The science minister hovered nearby, their gaseous forms swirling with nervous energy. "The anomaly's pulse is speeding up again. We need to begin now." Jack nodded, taking a deep breath. "Guardian ships, initiate power transfer on my mark. Remember, match the base frequency exactly. Don't try to overpower it." He watched the countdown on his screen. 3, 2, 1, mark. The Guardian ship's power cores lit up like new stars. Streams of pure energy flowed out into space, caught and channeled by the waiting energy beings. The mining platform's reflectors captured any stray energy, feeding it back into the mainstream. "First phase stable," Jack announced, watching the readings carefully. "Beginning frequency match." The energy beam's color shifted as its frequency changed to match the anomaly's pulse. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the anomaly's edges began to ripple. "It's working," the science minister exclaimed. "The anomaly's growth rate is slowing." But Jack frowned at his readings. Something wasn't right. The anomaly's pulse was changing, becoming more erratic. "Energy beings, adjust your wavelength. It's trying to shift away from us." The glowing forms of the energy beings stretched and twisted as they struggled to maintain control of the power flow. One of them suddenly flared bright and pulled back. "We're losing containment," the defense minister roared from his flagship. "The power feedback is too strong." "Hold position," Jack ordered. "Mining platforms, redirect excess energy to secondary collectors. Energy beings, pull back to safe distance but maintain the frequency link." The command center's displays flashed with warning signals as energy levels spiked dangerously. Jack's mind raced, calculating possibilities. The anomaly was adapting faster than expected, learning from their attempt just as it had learned from the attacks. Then he saw it, a pattern within the pattern. The anomaly wasn't just matching their energy, it was mimicking it, like a mirror or a dance partner. "Everyone, on my signal, reverse your energy polarity," Jack commanded. "Don't break the frequency match, just flip the waveform." "That will create a massive power surge," the science minister warned. "The backlash could destroy the fleet." "Trust me," Jack said firmly. "This is how humans dance." He waited 3 pulses, watching the rhythm. Now, all ships and beings acted as one, reversing their energy flow in perfect synchronization. The anomaly flared blindingly bright. Alarms screamed throughout the command center. Jack gripped his console, watching the readings spike off the charts. "Hold steady," he whispered, as much to himself as to the others. "Hold steady." The anomaly's light suddenly shifted, its edges beginning to curl inward. The pattern was changing, but not like before. This time, it was following their lead in the dance. The command center shook violently as energy waves rippled through space. Warning lights flashed everywhere as the combined fleet struggled to maintain their positions. The anomaly's brightness had dimmed, but now it was spinning, creating a whirlpool effect that threatened to pull everything apart. "Power levels critical," the defense minister's voice boomed through the comm. "The Guardian ships can't take much more of this strain." Jack's eyes darted between multiple displays, tracking energy patterns, ship positions, and the anomaly's response. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he worked. The entire operation was balanced on a knife's edge. "2 of the mining platforms have lost power," came another urgent report. "Their reflectors are failing." The science minister's gaseous form pulsed with panic. "The energy pattern is destabilizing. We're losing the frequency match." Jack could see it happening. Their carefully orchestrated energy field was coming apart. The anomaly's spin was pulling their formation out of alignment, and once that happened, everything would collapse. "This is what we get for trusting the humans' plan," someone shouted over the comm. "We should have stuck to traditional methods." Jack tuned out the criticism, focusing entirely on the patterns before him. The anomaly's spin wasn't random. It was following a new rhythm, like a dance changing tempo. And in that moment, Jack understood what they needed to do. "Everyone, listen carefully," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We're not losing the battle. The anomaly is testing us, like it tested our attacks before. We need to prove we can follow its lead." "Follow its lead," the defense minister growled. "It's tearing our ships apart." "Because we're fighting the spin," Jack explained quickly. "Guardian ships on my mark. I want you to shift your positions. Don't fight the pull. Move with it, like leaves in a whirlpool. That will break our formation." The science minister protested. "No," Jack said firmly. "It will create a new one. A dynamic one. Energy beings, prepare to spiral your energy streams with the spin. Mining platforms, adjust your reflectors to follow the new paths." For a moment, nobody moved. The fleet hung in space, straining against the anomaly's pull as their power readings continued to redline. Jack could feel the weight of every life depending on this decision. The human's theory about resonance was correct before. First speaker Bright Crystal's voice came through the comm, surprising everyone. "Perhaps we should trust him again." The defense minister's ship groaned as another energy wave hit it. "Very well. But if this fails, human, there won't be enough left of any of us to argue about it." Jack nodded grimly. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1. Begin spiral pattern." The massive guardian ships fired their maneuvering thrusters, allowing themselves to be caught in the anomaly spin. Instead of fighting the force, they used it, letting it guide them into a new formation. The energy beings followed, their glowing forms twisting their energy streams into spirals that matched the anomaly's rotation. For a horrifying moment, everything seemed to be flying apart. Warning sirens screamed as ships and platforms were pulled into the spiral. Jack's hands tightened on his console as he watched power levels spike dangerously high. Then suddenly, the strain readings began to drop. The energy patterns shifted, matching perfectly with the anomaly's spin. Like dancers finding their rhythm, the entire fleet moved in harmony with the spatial phenomenon they'd been fighting. "Power stabilizing," the science minister announced in disbelief. "The frequency match is stronger than before." "It's working," Jack breathed, watching the anomaly's edges begin to curl inward more rapidly. "It's actually working." But before anyone could celebrate, a new alarm blared. Jack's eyes widened as he saw the readings. "Something's happening," he said urgently. "Everyone brace for impact." A blinding flash of light filled the command center as the anomaly collapsed in on itself. The spiral of energy created by the fleet compressed into a single point of brilliant white light, then vanished with a pulse that rocked every ship in the formation. Warning systems blared as the shock wave passed through them, but the fleet held together. For several long seconds, nobody spoke. Everyone stared at the empty space where the anomaly had been, hardly daring to believe what they were seeing. The science minister broke the silence first. "Scanning. No trace of the anomaly remains. The spatial tear has completely sealed itself." A cheer went up across all communication channels. The energy beings glowed with jubilation, their forms creating beautiful patterns in space. The guardian ships fired their ceremonial plasma cannons in celebration, lighting up the darkness with bursts of color. Jack slumped in his chair, exhausted but smiling. They had done it, not through brute force or superior firepower, but through understanding, adaptation, and cooperation. "Well," the defense minister's voice rumbled through the comm, sounding unusually humble, "it seems we owe you an apology, Human Representative Stone." "Indeed," first speaker Bright Crystal agreed, its crystalline form shimmering with new respect. "You have shown us that true strength comes in many forms. Your species' ability to observe, adapt, and find unexpected solutions is remarkable. The mining collective's representative added, "Our ancestors always taught us that physical power was everything. That natural weapons and armor determined a species' worth. Perhaps we have been wrong about many things." Jack stood up, his legs slightly shaky after the intense operation. "Every species has its strengths," he said. "Humans might not have natural armor or energy projection abilities, but we've learned different kinds of strength. The strength to observe, to think, to adapt, to work together, and to dance with space itself, apparently," the science minister added, their gaseous forms swirling with what looked like amusement. The command center filled with representatives as ships returned to Unity Point. Jack found himself surrounded by beings who had dismissed him just days ago, but now looked at him with new eyes, or whatever sensory organs they possessed. First speaker Bright Crystal floated to the center of the room. "The Council must formally recognize what has happened here. Human Representative Stone, your species has proven itself beyond any doubt. I hereby propose an immediate vote to grant humanity full Council membership, with all rights and privileges thereof." The Defense Minister stepped forward. "The Guardians second this proposal. Any species that can turn our greatest crisis into a dance deserves a permanent place among us." The vote was unanimous. Every species, from the energy beings to the mining collective, voted to accept humanity as equals. Jack felt the weight of the moment as he accepted the official council seal on behalf of Earth. "Thank you," he said simply. "We look forward to dancing with you all again, though perhaps next time under less dangerous circumstances." Laughter rippled through the chamber in various forms and sounds. The first speaker raised its crystalline form in a gesture of recognition. "Let this day be remembered," it announced, "not just for the crisis we averted, but for the lesson we learned. True strength comes in many forms. The physical is just one kind of power. Today, we were reminded that intelligence, creativity, and the ability to adapt are just as valuable as claws or armor." As the celebration continued around him, Jack sent a message back to Earth. It was simple and to the point. "Humanity has taken its place among the stars, and we did it not by being the strongest, but by being uniquely human." He smiled as he looked out at the assembled aliens. No, his fellow council members. They had thought humans were weak because they couldn't see past physical power. Now they understood what humanity had learned over millions of years of evolution. Sometimes the greatest strength lies not in dominating nature, but in learning to dance with it.